I'm going to start the discussion by addressing the first question to our marketing practitioners. The first one will be on business value. Peter Drucker has always said that, many years ago, said that value can be seen in three ways. And he said that value, one of the key things, one of the key outcomes of value is business growth. The question is, how do key decision makers responsible for marketing and, of course, marketing communications create business value? And in addition to that, what levers do they pull? What levers do they pull to create positive impact for the employers they work for?
How do we as CMOs create that shared value? I believe the first thing that we probably need to put into consideration is the fact that there's one thing binding us and the rest of the organization in terms of focus is the customers. So how do we constantly move away from not being seen as a cost to the business, because all we do is spend money, but what we do is add value. And I think all we do is spend money rather than, drive leads and all of that. So for me, the way I would answer that is the levers that we would have to pull as CMOs is that we begin to look into partnerships, strategic alliances. So when the rest of the organizations they're talking about various things, we're pulling them back into how other parts of the business can add value. For example, we all know that a sports team cannot really work alone. There's a group of, let's say football. Maybe football is something everybody can relate to. You know that you need 11 players. Everyone has a particular skill. So how do you ensure as a CMO? So what I say to myself is, the lever I will pull is constantly recommend to the organization, let's look into partnerships. Let's look into alliances. How do we do that? If there's someone who we're trying to engage that is not our core area of businesses, why do we have to now put monies behind those sort of ideas? Why not look for the experts within those fields and partner with them so as to create that shared value? What you've done, in essence, by that recommendation, is you've reduced cost and you've actually put it back into the hands of the experts while working in partnership with them to add that value, because you have all those network of influence where you can actually call up favors and actually just drive uptake at all times.
I mean, we need to be more focused on consumers here. Consumers are the reasons why we're in business. The partnership we're talking about is how do we add value to our organizations. Today, if a brand today can proudly say, I'm putting this brand in the hand of maybe 20 of Nigerian consumers on a daily basis, I think we'll have added value. The major issue with us is the fact that, like the keynote speakers have said, we fail to understand the consumer trend and the consumer triggers and barriers. If you look at it from the perspective of what do we do in a volatile economy to add value to our organizations, at the end of the day, if we collectively as marketeers look at it and say, look, today, I'm consciously going to make effort to put this brand in the hands of consumers, and they're going to like it. That's one leg. The other leg is, how do we do this effectively as marketeers? Marketers can come and say, I want to spend billions of dollars as marketing budget, but the issue is the fact that, are you doing it in an effective way? Are you making it creating value for your organization out of these things? If you don't do it that way, if you spend your money and spend it at the end of the day, your management will ask you a question. What value have you gotten from all of these things? The third thing is, if you look at it from the perspective of what's your route to market like? Effectiveness in your route to market is key as well. How do I make it available? Gone are the days where people will leave their homes to go and look for your brands in miles and miles and miles away. You need to be available at their doorstep. If you don't do it that way, then you're not creating value. The other thing is, how do you embrace technology? At the end of the day, if these things are not there, at the end of the day, you are not creating value for your organizations. Technology is key. The future starts today. The winner in this market are those people that will embrace the future today.
You can look at value creation through quite a number of lenses. Number one has to do with business growth itself. You can also look at it from the point of view of efficiency and then from productivity. If I start with productivity, it basically means that you're looking at every single unit of customer. You're asking yourself that, how do I make this particular type of customer do more? Is it by helping my company cross-sell or upsell to them? Or is it by finding out if there are other ways that they can even buy more of the same thing that they are currently buying? From an efficiency point of view, starting from our own budget, we can always find better ways of actually even spending the money that we've received from the company, while also looking at how we can help our organization maximize every other part of the consumer chain. You spoke about the route to market. Is this the shortest and cheapest way to get our products to the market? And from a pricing point of view, are there ways in which you are leaving money on the table? And of course, business growth, we need to look at our markets more holistically. And as Dr. Salami was saying, do we know the sectors of the economy where our customers are? Do we know the parts of the country where they are? So, because if you want to grow the business, you're either growing into new markets or you're taking market share from an existing customer. If you have that kind of framework in mind, it would help you really know where your areas of strengths are and how you can be of use to your company.
One of the debates that I've always witnessed as a teacher in the classroom is the debate on whether marketing is gradually shifting towards the investment aspect of the balance sheet. And what I often hear is that I would rather take my money for marketing and advertising and put it on, buy treasury bills. That's what I hear from finance people. Essentially, the belief, is that marketing is moving towards that side, investment side. Do you share this belief?
I work in what I would call an old generation small bank that has the challenges, like mentioned, profitability versus perception. 2 years ago, we decided to launch a digital bank. And there were questions in the room. How should we? Should we not? Should we? And people said, hey, hold on. If we make ROE of 30% per annum, people will recognize the bank rather than spending on adverts. That what do consumers want? Do they want a bank with good ROE, or do they want a bank that they see blah, blah, blah everywhere? And then so that dilemma was there. And then the question of ROI. And we accountants will smile to say, ROI is good from the point of view of marketing, but as an accountant, I look at accounting conventions. So if I spend on adverts, I have to amortize the cost in 1 year. So yes, you can call it investment, but I call it a cost. Because my auditors will not agree to say, you are investing, so we'll spend it for 3 years or 4 years. Auditors will say, sorry, you did adverts on third mainland or fourth mainland or fifth mainland, hit the cost in 1 year. So that dilemma will always be there. But the interesting part is, as a finance person, the first and underlying thing is, what is the strategy? What are we trying to achieve? And then, are these marketing initiatives talking to the strategy? So when we then, Wema Bank launched Alert. Alert for us was the financial play. Let's go develop this bank, target the next generation, and move. But then we saw that the larger impact of Alert was on perception. So when you go out to say, I'm from this bank, they say, oh, you guys launched Alert, I'm from that bank. And then we started asking ourselves, wow, we did not look at how to quantify or how to gauge the impact of perception on what we did. So as a finance person, obviously the first pushback is justify the cost expense or justify these investments and let me see the impact on the bottom line. But as a finance person, is also to understand how is it talking to the long-term value creation. Is it adding to my customer base? Is it adding to my business volume? And at the end of the day, is it hitting the bottom line? So I think slowly and gradually, the finance guys are getting a lot more in tune to strategy and business impact. And the marketing guys also know that they have to talk finance speak to get the monies out. So they also come to say, by doing this, this is what we believe the impact will be in customer acquisition, in business volumes, and what have you. So we started seeing some convergence slowly and gradually.
One of the critical responsibilities of a CEO is to work collaboratively with the CMO to create value, to communicate value, to deliver value at a profit to the organization. Now, for people that are aspiring to become CEOs, how would you advise them? How best can they deliver value?
I think first I disagree with the notion that what we spend in marketing is just a cost. I genuinely do, not because I came through marketing, but I genuinely do. And here's the reason why. Any business has got a few levers you have to drive value. One could be sell more. Number two is sell better, meaning that you sell brands or products that fetch more money, higher value. The third one, as a marketing practitioner, what's your contribution to depressing cost of products that you sell, just in case you don't have the fourth lever of taking price? To the extent that a CMO can influence all of the four, in everything we do, are we going to sell more? Are we going to sell better? Are we going to influence cost reduction? And will we earn the right to take price? Those are the four things. There should never be a conflict between a finance director and a marketing director, because I do know that if you take price and you're clever about it, you make more money, but you have to earn the right to take price. And the one thing I know is that when you have a strong brand with strong equity, which the marketers can do for you, it gives you the right to take price. So there shouldn't be a conflict. I would be saying to any marketing director or person who has become a general manager, just think about those four levers every time, and I think you should be fine. But also, the marketing people do a better job in recruiting the finance directors to come into your world. I think you stand apart and off them, and therefore fuel the view as if you're adversaries. You're not. In any case, the money you spend is not your money, and the finance people, the money they keep is not their money either. There's somebody whose capital, whether a shareholder or a family person who invested the money, who we both serve.
Sorry, I just wanted to also add the fact that, but there's still these pending challenges we have with not just the CFOs, even but the CEOs of organizations. We don't put value to the reputation of the brand, to the strength of the brand, to the equity generally of the brand. And I think that that's where sometimes we spend a lot of our times as marketers protecting the brand, protecting the reputation of the brand. We won't take out the sales bit, but oftentimes, our books don't really reflect our results. I work in financial services, it doesn't really reflect the value that a brand has. And we spend a good part of our time ensuring that the brand reputation is protected, the brand is strengthened, and all of that. So, I mean, I'm just trying to also just try to clarify that it's something that we worry about, that, that is within our control, but oftentimes we're working with other parts of the business to work on the price, to either tell them to collaborate more, collapse, and sell the hero products and all of that. So how do we balance that? Maybe the CFO, I'm sorry I'm asking the question because it's something I had on my notes as well, to say it's of concern to us as well, to me in particular.
It all starts by both the marketing director and general manager and finance director agreeing to what type of growth do you want to go for. For me, that's why it always starts. What is it we are trying to do this year? What is it we are trying to do over the next 3 years? So sometimes you'll find things might feel contradictory, but as long as you are hooked around the outcome we are going for this year, there shouldn't be, and I'm using the word there shouldn't be, a conflict. Conflict oftentimes arises when there's dissonance between what you promise to deliver and you do not deliver it. And for us as marketing people, we run away from that. There's an emerging theory of accountable marketing. There's a gentleman who spoke about technology and the role of technology in providing data for decision making. Moving away from experience, this is how it works here. I know this is what works, to really testing what are the data points now that gives us the confidence that we're making the best possible decision. If both of you and the finance director are looking at the same data, there should not be conflict. The second thing is, for some reason, oftentimes most marketers don't like to be held accountable to the promise they made before the money was approved. So you ask for £1 million, you go spend it, whatever it is you promised. The finance director is, boy, I have to go back to the board and tell them, I've blown £2 million on this campaign. It hasn't worked. What happened? So I think as long as we all feel accountable to the promise we've made, we should be fine. Some things will go wrong, but as long as the intention was right, the data used was not arguable, the outcomes might differ. There shouldn't be such a big fight.
I think for me as a CFO, one key conflict is, like he said, accountability, but measuring the outcomes or measuring the expectations. So my brand and marketing person comes, I want to sponsor XYZ events. This sponsorship will enable me to do this. And I say, how do I measure the impact of this sponsorship? It feels good. You see my name on whatever, Ikeja Marathon or what have you, sponsored by Alat. But does the Ikeja Marathon add to my customer base? I say, it's perception. People will see you out there. People communicate. I say, at the end of the day, I don't take perception to shareholders. It's dividends or it's return. So how do we measure or track? And those things are important. So for us is, during the budgeting cycle, what are the things you want to do and how can we track impact? Even if some are still qualitative, but let's start the process of tracking that impact. And let me give you an example. We will take a branch. We have some branches that look old. So we take a view, let's renovate the branches and make them look like a new generation branch. And then we spend millions of naira, we finish. So say, how do we measure if this has worked or not? So we say, okay, an example is number of walk-in customers. Customers on their own are now walking to say, okay, I like this looks good, can we see? That is not necessarily the best outcome, but it's a proxy. So what we try to do is working with marketing guys, try to identify certain proxies that we can use to measure their planned investments. Or you want to sponsor this, you want to do this. Okay, can we use something as a proxy to measure? Then slowly and gradually, we start getting some convergence. So I guess the message really is look for proxies to measure outcome, and then everybody should be on the same page.
So I think what's most importantly is, I think, for the CEO, the CMO, the CFO, the whoever, the CXOs, I think we first of all have a common value system. I think that's most importantly, as an organization, as a team. I think most importantly is you need to have faith in each other. So rather than question and say, rather than the finance director questioning the CMO and saying, why is this happening? I mean, jointly making a plan. So in terms of setting joint targets, I think that's most important. So aligning in terms of working as a team. I think for me, that's most importantly. I think every single marketing activity, every single marketing investment that you make should always be measured against preset objectives. So a lot of times we do a lot of things that make us look good. And my advice to every CMO or every brand manager is, if every advertisement that you invest in does not sell extra cartons out, it's wasted money. So I think bringing everyone on board, and at the end of the day, I mean, for me, the CMO in a way is driving the business, because he is defining how many consumers are you going to go out to and meet and try and sell the product. The CMO needs to internally market. So there is external marketing, and my question always to every CMO is, if you can't convince your team, your colleagues, how are you going to convince that consumer out there who's got 100 other options? How are you going to convince him to buy your product? So I think it's a shared value system more than anything else for me.
Yes.
I think critical to foster a better relationship is results. Yeah. Most of the time, we marketers, we do things, but at the end of the day, what we do, how does it translate into sales to help the salesman to sell more cartons? If I say I want to sponsor the marathon, like Tony has said, how does it make more people buy my product? If I say as a marketer, I want to shoot a TVC, that I will fly it and spend $1 billion, how does it make consumer who walk into that store buy my product versus competition? If the results are coming, everybody will be on the same page. The relationship will be better. The CFO wanted money for the company. You want to spend money for the company. The board wanted results. If the results are there, the critical thing is let all of us focus on delivering results. Both as marketing person, as CFO, and as CMO, definitely the relationship will be a better one to do at the end of the day.